have a result.
Yes, we do. Republican Senator William Cohn of Maine, he retired. And Susan Collins, a member of Cohn's staff, she takes over for her boss. It was an open seat, but the Republicans keep it, defeating Joseph Brennan, a former governor and former Democratic representative.
She's a new Republican senator, but her record is, her views are that mostly of a moderate, much in the mold of her colleague, Olympia Snowe. That gives Maine two women Republican senators, both moderates.
We now have 2 states with 2 women representing them in the Senate.
Right.
CNN.
And a big story in Louisiana, Mary Landrieu, the winner in the Senate. I don't know if we have a picture of her, but we've just been told by our executive producer, Bob Fernand, that she is the winner. That was a cliffhanger right up until the end.
That was a very clear choice for the voters of Louisiana. Mary Landrieu is a moderate, at least probably a liberal. She's very pro-choice. The Archbishop of New Orleans came out and said a Catholic couldn't in good conscience vote for her. That's the most Catholic state in the South, as Bill Snyder told us before. And the person she was running against, Woody Jenkins, a state legislator so conservative that in 20-some years in the state legislature, he did not vote for a single tax increase. Mary Landrieu.
She had problems with the African-American community in Louisiana, and she had to work feverishly to shore up support among black voters in the state of Louisiana.
What this means, I guess, is that we can now project accurately that the Republicans will have at least 51 votes in the Senate. They will control the Senate. Correct?
That is correct.
That's right, because Louisiana, the Democrats are holding on there.
That's right. And that means
Maine is a Republican seat that the Republicans are holding on to.
And that means, obviously, that in addition to Trent Lott being majority leader, we'll have Alphonse D'Amato heading the banking committee, and that's bad news for Bill Clinton.
Over in the House, Speaker Newt Gingrich, we called his race. He's going back to Washington, of course. But let's listen here in Marietta and see what he has to say about the balance of power, which is what we've been watching for you all night long. Newt Gingrich.
Newt Gingrich is someone who became a symbol of everything evil to the Democrats after the first few months of the Gingrich Revolution. There are those who say that he pushed the revolution too far. It looks like he's getting ready to speak. Well, maybe he's getting ready to speak.
Newt Gingrich predicted that the Republicans would pick up between 6 and 26 seats in the House of Representatives.
Not that you all are excited or anything, but this is pretty amazing. Let me say, first of all, to all of you, that I, on behalf of Mary Ann and my mom, who's here but didn't feel comfortable coming up on the stage, and I might say in passing for a second that I hope my dad is watching this. He is in a hospital in Harrisburg and is not doing very well. And so many of you, he was here 2 years ago when we won the speakership the first time. And he really, we miss him here tonight, and I hope all of you put him in your prayers because he's got a fairly serious condition. My mom's down, but she didn't feel comfortable. She has a cataract, and she didn't feel comfortable coming up on the stairs, so she's watching all this. But I want to tell all of you on behalf of my whole family, you know, to have the kind of friends that we have, to have the kind of volunteers, to have people who put up a yard sign in their yard 4 and 5 times because it kept getting taken down, to have and I know they left the stage, but to have Linda and to have Babe Burns and to have the chairman right here and to have all the different friends we had from all over the district. And the fact is that our opponent spent about $3 million, most of it out of his own pocket. And it's wonderful to live in a country where people can start out and by riding a bicycle and selling cookies, they can have the extra resources. It's wonderful. But the fact is, in this district, it was the people power of all the folks who went out all over this district that made the difference. And I look out over so many, I look out over so many personal friends and people who've been involved in the campaign and people I've known for years. And I'm now of an age where people come up and tell me that they were glad they took my course 20 years ago, and I'd like to meet their son or daughter who's going to vote for me this year. And, you know, you begin to realize that it becomes a generational thing. And I just can't tell you what it means to all of us, to Paul and to Kathy, to Jackie and Jimmy, to Mary Ann and myself, to be able to look out here and see this really is a jam-packed. I think there are twice as many people here tonight as there were the last time we did this. I look over here at Mark Grundon, who's now, I think, what, 6'5"? I knew Mark Grundon.
House Speaker Newt Gingrich feeling very good at this hour. He's going back to Washington, and he's won in his district. Bill Snyder, you've been looking at some of the exit polling out of there.
Newt Gingrich doesn't do too well in the exit poll. This is nationwide, mind you, not in his district. Nationwide, voters are 2-to-1 unfavorable in their view of Newt Gingrich. 60% have an unfavorable opinion of the Speaker. 31% have a favorable opinion. Now, the Republicans tried to use Hillary Rodham Clinton, the First Lady, as a kind of scare figure, but Americans are divided over the First Lady, 49 favorable, 46 unfavorable. Gingrich, there's a decided tilt to the negative nationwide, but obviously not in his district, one of the most Republican in the country.
Okay, thank you. Well, we still have outstanding Washington and California, but by our interpretation of what we're getting in, it appears that the Republican Party, when the 105th Congress is sworn in January, the Republican Party will be in retention of supremacy in both houses. Incidentally, if you're keeping track and wondering about 6 states, we indeed have not called 6 states. We have not called Arizona. We have not called Colorado, Georgia, South Dakota, Nevada, or Montana. And also, people are still voting up there in Alaska. Wolf Blitzer, you've been down there in Little Rock ever since the president and his party arrived in the early hours of the night or morning. I asked Leon Panetta a question which he didn't address frontally. He didn't want to hear that. And I said I wasn't trying to take away anything from the victory, the obvious victory. I asked him, when does lame duck disease begin to set in? And he backed away from that question.
Well, there's no surprise in that, Bernie. The president certainly, according to his aides, is not feeling as if he's a lame duck. He's feeling very excited, and we should be seeing him soon. We do have a bit of news, though, Bernie. The White House press secretary, Mike McCurry, only a few moments ago, telling reporters that President Clinton did receive the traditional phone call from his Republican challenger, Bob Dole, just under an hour ago at about 10:25 Eastern time. Dole called Clinton here in Little Rock to, of course, congratulate him, to express probably his regret over his defeat. The conversation was described by McCurry as warm. He didn't want to go into any details. About half an hour, 40 minutes or so after that, the Republican vice presidential challenger, Jack Kemp, telephoned Vice President Al Gore here in Little Rock as well to congratulate him, to acknowledge that they have been defeated, of course. And when McCurry was asked to go into some more details about both of these conversations, McCurry simply said, quote, "The gentlemen will speak for themselves." Indeed, the gentlemen here will speak for themselves very soon. We are awaiting anxiously the arrival here at the old State House of the president and the vice president. They'll be coming out with the First Lady and with Tipper Gore for what is going to be a very tumultuous celebration. Back to the national desk.
Okay, thank you, Wolf. Did I hear you correctly? Gore is in Little Rock where you are and not in Washington.
That's right.
Okay, thanks very much.
And Kemp, we should mention, is in California, even though Dole is in Washington. They're at opposite ends of the country tonight. We're going to hear from, talk with, I should say, two of CNN's familiar faces, analyst Kellyanne Fitzpatrick, Republican pollster, and she's on the right and on the left, Farai Chideya. To both of you, we're seeing the president reelected, but we are seeing the Republican Congress come back in the majority. Apparently, that's what it looks like at this hour.
What's really fascinating about that is that when Americans were polled and asked whether they would support the Democrat or the Republican in their district, more than half said they would support the Democrat, but that's not what we're seeing tonight. In the actual individual races, we're seeing the Republicans coming back, holding on to their margin of victory in the House.
Judy, I would say the 1996 demographic group to really keep our eye on are the so-called ticket splitters. It seems that Americans went to the ballot box tonight and, believing that the presidency was a foregone conclusion, returned Newt Gingrich to the speakership and the Republicans to the House. It seems that the kneecap Newt strategy didn't pay off in the end because they went after him personally instead of trying to go after his issues.
Well, of course, we have to see whether or not the president gets a majority or plurality. He got a 43% plurality in '92. He was looking for 50% or above to try to help the Republicans, or rather help Democrats in the House and the Senate. I was struck, Faria and Kellyanne, by the fact that in the state of Arkansas, a Republican senator is coming from Arkansas for the first time in 100 years. Obviously, the president took his home state tonight, but not enough to prevent that.
And he actually joins a Republican governor there as well. And it just seems that Americans are making history all over the map tonight, Bernie, because we keep hearing this hasn't happened since the 1960s, this hasn't happened since the 1840s. And in fact, Americans have something to say about history repeating itself. Sometimes they decide to make it instead.
Farai, this is, will it make a difference, Farai? Bernie mentioned we don't know yet whether President Clinton will get that magic 50% majority or not. Will it make a difference in his ability to govern if he does not?
It won't make a difference in his ability to govern. It may make somewhat of a difference in his heart in terms of how he feels that he has been able to capture the imagination of the country. The much more important distinction is what's happening with the Congress, the fact that the Congress is going to stay Republican. It means he's going to have more uphill battles. It means that with the ethics investigations, for example, he's going to have a hostile audience on the committees. Whitewater may continue to drag on for another few years, and so that's going to be the real pivot.
Let's go now.